All right, this is Ralph, and in this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about how to raise your vibration. If you've had any experience in the spiritual community or dealing with people in the spiritual communities, a lot of times you'll hear us say, raise your vibration, raise your emotional state. But nobody, well, I won't say nobody, but it's not that often that people will actually tell you how to raise your vibration, how to raise your emotional state. And so that's what I want to do in this video. Because one thing that a lot of people don't realize is something that was observed by Dr. David R. Hawkins, and he covers this in his book, Power versus Force. But he discovered that human emotions vibrate at certain frequencies in hertz. And this is where we get this idea that you need to raise your vibration, raise your frequency, because we're vibrating at a variety of different vibrations in our life, depending upon our emotional states. And the lowest emotional state, the lowest vibration that you can experience is shame. Shame comes in at 20 hertz. Uh, you can go higher up on the scale. Fear is one of the most common emotional states that people experience in this life. That's a vibration of 100 hertz. Anger is another one, kind of tied to fear. You're afraid of something, you're afraid of it, and then finally you just get all pissed off about it. You get angry, and yeah, then you're vibrating at a slightly higher frequency. That's 150 hertz. And then you can make it all the way up to pride, which is 175 hertz. I'm better than you. I'm better than that. I'm better than all of you combined. That pride that you can see, spiritual pride, regular pride, not pride in the positive sense, but more of a negative manifestation of pride. That's 175 hertz. And all these frequencies from 20 hertz on up to 175 are low range frequencies. They tend to be soul sucking frequencies rather than life affirming frequencies. And then you got the higher states like trust, willingness. That's 310 hertz. That's when you're getting into the positive areas. Love, very powerful emotion. Love, 500 hertz. Joy, gratitude, that's 540 hertz. And then peace, serenity, 600 hertz. And then bliss and enlightenment, that's in the area of 700 hertz on up to 1,000 hertz. So that's the breakdown in a nutshell. Now, the bad news is in our world today, the average person vibrates on average around 200 hertz. So, I mean, they're stuck anywhere from anger to pride to the energy of courage. Courage at 200 hertz is a positive emotional state. It's the beginning of the positive emotional states, but that's where a lot of people just kind of plateau out at. Now, you can go higher. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of this video talking about. How to go higher. If you're stuck in a emotional state of shame for most of the day, you definitely need to raise your vibration. If you're stuck in a state of fear, anger, spend a lot of time on social media, that's a likely outcome from social media because there's nothing but fear and anger, it seems, expressed, in social media, in the general news media at large. So, yeah, you definitely need to focus on raising your vibration. So, how the heck do we do that? Well, I've got 3 different ways that you can do that. And I'm going to speak on these from harder on down to the easier methods. The hardest one is this one. This is the method that a lot of people may think is impossible for them because they are so out of control of their emotions. And I know because I've been there myself. The first way to raise your vibration is to shift your emotional state. Now, I was told this, gosh, when was that? About 40 years ago. I was in the early stages of alcoholism, and I was going to AA. I was going to different treatment centers at that time, and I've since found recovery and sobriety since then. But people were telling me I could control my own emotions. And I was looking at them like they were idiots. They were crazy. I thought I could not control my emotions. I thought my emotions were in the hands of other people. It was other people making me mad. And the only way I could make myself happy and glad again would be to go home, grab a beer, and just drink. And when they started telling me that I could control my own emotions, it's like that was a major revelation for me at that time. And I've since discovered that, yes, it's true. And yeah, there may be a lot of people listening to this right now thinking, how do I? How do I change my emotions? Well, the way it was explained to me in AA is this. If you're feeling angry about something, somebody has really angered you, forget about that anger for just a moment, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, think about things to be grateful for. And I had one old sponsor in AA who has since, passed on. But I mean, he would talk about making a gratitude list. Start your day, get out a piece of paper and a pencil, write down all the things to be grateful for. And some of us, it's like we felt that life was so bad for us at that time, we had really nothing to be grateful for. And so he said, well, how about your sobriety? Have you taken a drink yet today? And if you haven't, write that down on your gratitude list. I may have nothing going for me except this. I haven't taken a drink today. And be grateful for your sobriety. As young and as tender as that sobriety might be grateful for it. If you're feeling some other emotions, like this is another way I like to look at it, is that sometimes I can get so angry about my electronic devices. My Android smartphones can overheat, especially now in the summers. They can start acting up. And so, when that happens, I can get angry. But then I stop and I catch myself and I think I just got angry because my smartphone overheated. How funny is that? And then I consciously try to shift myself from that feeling of anger to a feeling of joy. I just look at myself, look at what I did, I laugh at myself. I do not shame myself. Now that's a trap that a lot of people can fall into. You screw up, somebody points out to you that you screwed up. Maybe you recognize for yourself that you screwed up in some area. And so a lot of people will start to feel like, okay, I'm shameful. I'm weak. I can't do better. No, don't let yourself go down to that level of shame. That will weaken you. That's the weakest emotional state there is. Try to rise above that. Look at yourself, look at what you've done, find something humorous in it. Find some reason to see a little bit of humor in it and laugh about it and then move on. And if somebody has hurt you in some way, try to feel sympathy for them. And this is a hard one. This can be a hard one for a lot of people, especially if somebody is hurting you in a very, very bad way. First thing you need to do is get some space from that person. Put yourself into a place of safety. Don't let yourself remain in a place where you are going to get hurt, either emotionally or physically or both. Take care of yourself. But after you've gotten yourself into a place of safety, recognize that that other person is doing these mean and nasty things to you, not necessarily because they're bad people, but because they're weak people. They're vibrating at a lower level and they're stuck there. They don't know they're stuck yet. Sadly, they don't know any better. So feel sorry for them, feel sympathy for them. You might even want to pray for them. Wish for them the same things you wish for yourself. But I mean, these are just some, easy examples of how we can shift our emotional state from the lower states of anger, of hurt, of grief, of disappointment to the higher states of joy, of love, and definitely gratitude. When you feel like you've got nothing, if you still got your health, be grateful for that. You still got your sobriety, be grateful for that. If you've lost your sobriety, you can get it back. Be grateful for that. Find people who can help, get involved in an AA group or a 12-step group. Reach out for that kind of assistance and be grateful that that assistance is there. So yeah, that's the hardest way because a lot of people think they're out of touch with their emotions. And a lot of people actually are out of touch with their emotions. But once you learn to become mindful of what you're feeling, how you're feeling, what effect that's having on you, on your body, both your physical body and your energetic body, then you can consciously raise your emotional state. Focus on the next higher emotion. Focus on love instead of anger, gratitude instead of being pissed off. And yeah, you can absolutely do that. Take some practice, but you can absolutely do that. Now, the second way that you can raise your vibration, and this is easier, and I've seen this done in churches, through church music. I've seen this done at home. People get feeling sad, they get feeling depressed. They put on some good music. And listening to positive, uplifting music can be one easy way to lift your emotions up from out of the gutter to a higher, more positive state. Listening to like silly songs, silly love songs. Paul McCartney was all over that back in the day. Find some positive, uplifting music and play it. I would definitely steer away from the more negative forms of music, like negative rap, death metal, things like that. Music that makes you feel angry, makes you feel rage. Those are the lower frequencies. You don't want to be stuck in those soul-sucking frequencies. Find something that's going to raise you up to the energy of love, of gratitude, of joy, bliss. So yeah, focus on good, uplifting music. And you can find not really music, not exactly songs, but you can find like musical tonalities. I guess you can call it music, but on YouTube, you can find some nice meditation tones, meditation music to listen to that is specifically geared towards a certain frequency and hertz. There's music out there that's geared towards 300, 400 hertz. There's meditation music as geared towards 600 hertz and higher, 500 hertz. Just find the area that you want to focus on, the emotional state where you want to be, and find the corresponding song in frequency and hertz that works for you. Another way that you can do this, similar to listening to uplifting music, is surrounding yourself with positive, uplifting people. Jim Rohn once said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with every day." If you're hanging out with a bunch of losers, you're going to be the next loser. If you're hanging out with 5 millionaires every day, odds are pretty good you're going to be the 6th millionaire. If you're hanging out with people who are just constantly angry, resentful, shameful, they feel shame within themselves. They want to shame other people so they don't feel all alone in their little world of shame. You are going to be picking up that energy. So, if you want to raise your vibration, you don't feel like you have it within yourself quite yet to raise your own emotional frequency, start hanging out with people who already have, people who are vibrating around the frequency of love, acceptance, gratitude, and start hanging out with people like that. And yeah, it's going to be a whole different world. I know back in the day when I was vibrating at a very lower frequency, one of around shame to anger to pride. And I would be surrounding myself with positive people. And I'd be thinking to myself in the back of my mind, they're crazy. They're nuts. But I also hung around them long enough to realize that I wanted to have what those crazy nuts had because they were such positive people. And eventually it did rub off. But I mean, that's another way. Listen to positive, uplifting music, be around positive, uplifting people, either in your face to face world, your online world, or preferably both. And, watching positive, uplifting movies, TV programs, things like that. That can help to raise your vibration too. And it's very easy, just hang out with the right people, listen to the right music, watch the right programs. And yes, you can start feeling your energy level rise up. So, yeah, that's the second way. The third way, and this is something that is pretty easy, I think, for me. I've started doing this uh, every morning and periodically during the day, but this is through chanting meditation, by chanting simple mantras. And for me, the simplest mantra is either Om or Om. And when you're chanting, either Om or Om or some other mantra, if you're doing it, I mean, you begin to feel like you are vibrating at a higher frequency. And when you're chanting Om, you do that. Just close your eyes and go, Om or Om. Om. You can feel your vibration. You can feel that vibration in your head. You can feel that vibration in your body. You sit down and you do that 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. And yeah, you just feel uplifted from that simple practice alone. And it's all self contained. You've got all the technology that you need to do that. Now, the question may be in your mind, well, which one do I focus on? Because when I first started doing this, I was told to focus on Om. And then I was doing that for a few years, got so far in my practice. And then I started coming across people who were saying, no, it's not really Om, it's more Om. And I'm going to show in the next part of this video the difference in frequency using a high budget frequency meter that I downloaded for free from the Google Play Store, and you can too. But yeah, the frequency differences between Om and Om. Om will carry you into the lower realms of the positive energy frequency areas, about 250 on up to about 400. And so, yeah, that's kind of positive energy there. Takes you from the energy of, let's say, courage to neutrality to acceptance, forgiveness, reason, and maybe even bordering up into love. And that's the power of Om. And we'll see that in the second part of this video. And the power of Om, Om. Now that gets you vibrating at much higher frequencies. That takes you from the frequency of enlightenment and bliss on down to peace, joy, love, gratitude, reason. And I think it drops down about 400 frequency. But we'll see that demonstrated in the second part of the video. So, what I would say, wherever you want to start, figure out, okay, where do you want to be? Are you working on trust issues in your life right now? Are you focusing more on willingness, developing optimism, maybe acceptance of the things that's happened into your life? Those are all on the frequency range from, let's say, 200 hertz to about 400 hertz. Ohm covers that area beautifully. If you want to rise above that, you want to go from reason to love to joy to gratitude to peace to serenity to bliss. Om might be your preferred vehicle. And I'm going to demonstrate the difference between Om and Om in the next part of the video. Let's dive into that. Hey, we are rolling. All right. Hey, this is Ralph. And in this video, what I want to do is show the difference between chanting Om and chanting Om. And when I first started doing chanting meditation, I started out with Om, and I found that that would carry me so far. But then somebody told me it's not really Om you should be chanting, it's Om. And it made me wonder, well, what's the difference? So anyway, what I've done is I've downloaded this frequency analyzer from the Google Play Store. And what we can do is we can see the difference in frequency from Om to Om. And now let's start out with Om. Let's see what kind of frequency range we get with Om. See, we do pretty good on the lower frequency ranges on Om. Takes us anywhere from about, 240, 250, on up to 300, on up to a little bit higher than that. So, I mean, if you're working on issues of like faith, trust, your capacity for reason, acceptance, those frequency ranges are there in chanting Om. But now, if you want to go higher than that, according to the Hawkins scale, if you want to go higher than that, into the realm of love, gratitude, bliss, joy, things like that, then you need to go higher than just 300-400 hertz. And this is where the frequency of Ah or Om comes in. Let's see what the frequency of Om is. Whoa, I've only done that twice, and I'm already feeling that in my head, in my chest. Man, now that is much more powerful. And we can see where that took me. I mean, yeah, the highest, where did we plateau out? I mean, where was the highest point? I think around 800, 900, 1,000. Those are the higher frequencies. And then it tended to stabilize around the 600 zone. That's the zone of love. That's the zone of gratitude, peace, love, serenity. So yeah, if those are the areas you want to work on in your spiritual practice, in your meditative practice, then yeah, I would say Om is the way to go. Let's try that one more time, just because it feels so darn good for me to do it. Yeah, around 700, and then we closed it out around 300. Beautiful place. But now, if you're wanting to focus just on like courage, trust, acceptance, faith, then Om could be the perfect vehicle to get you there. Let's do Om one more time. So yeah, if you're working on lower frequency issues like trust, forgiveness, reason, things like that, Om could be a good chant for you. If you're working on the higher frequencies of growth like love, peace, serenity, then Om could be your way to go. Find the path that works for you and work it. All right, this is Ralph signing out. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.